Welcome back. In Washington, lots of people pay very close attention to the Cook political report. So its new assessment that actually came out this week looks pretty good for Democrats, and here's why. The Cook political report shifted 4 very closely watched Senate races in the direction of the Democratic Party: Nebraska, Ohio, Georgia, and North Carolina. Jessica Taylor joins me now. She is the Senate and Governor's editor for the Cook political report. It's great to have you with us. Let's take them in order. The order is this: North Carolina Senate race. Tell us why you shifted that one.
We have seen former Governor Roy Cooper have a consistent lead over former Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley. Whatley isn't known. Cooper is a known commodity. I had a Republican source compare this race to me as Cooper is the old coat that you like and know, versus Whatley is a new pair of shoes from a brand you don't like. I've seen polling, private polling and public polling with voters, and it's particularly independent voters and independent women souring on President Trump. His approval ratings, CNN averaged them in the state, they're 15 points underwater. So this was a combination, I think, of Cooper's strengths and also Trump's falling standing there in the state. And this was an important shift because this actually represents a net pickup for Democrats. So trying to get to those 4 seats that they need gets them one more there. So we actually put out our first range, rather, which we have the range. Even with our shifts, they're only expected to pick up 1 to 3 seats, which is short of the 4 overall that they need.
Talk to me about Ohio.
Ohio you have former Senator Sherrod Brown that just lost in the 2024 election, but he had to run with Trump atop the ticket, and he doesn't have to do that. He outran Kamala Harris significantly in the state. John Husted was appointed to this seat to succeed now Vice President J.D. Vance. He just isn't as well known, and he's also suffering from, I think, the state still remains a red one, but Trump's approval ratings and numbers are even falling there. And so Brown is going to have a ton of money. Husted is catching up. He's still having to introduce himself to voters. So, both Republican and Democratic sources I talk to increasingly see this as a toss-up race.
In Georgia, for a while, Republicans thought that was potentially gettable. You don't think so?
Jon Ossoff has continued to just amass amazing amounts of fundraising. He has more than $30 million cash on hand right now, and Republicans have a very messy primary. I will underscore our ratings could shift, and they are coming at a low point for Trump with what's happening with gas prices, with what's happening in Iran. His overall approval ratings, are at 40% or lower. If President Trump's standing gets better, then we will shift our ratings accordingly. This isn't where we think these races will end up. This is indicative of where they are now.
Very quickly, Nebraska, that's kind of an interesting widget.
This just moves on to the edge of the competitive map, I will say. That you have an independent there, Dan Osborne, who ran last time. Deb Fischer was caught asleep at the wheel. He faces a much tougher opponent in Pete Ricketts, who has his family money should he need it. He is running a very strong race there, but Osborne sort of has been able to tap into this blue collar appeal. He's a union leader, but he's also the de facto Democrat in the race. So he has to also grapple with that in a state like Nebraska. So still a long ways to go for Nebraska, but it just merited polling did there that we've seen privately, particularly in the 2nd district, that shows that this race is becoming more competitive, but still likely Republican does not mean a Democratic or an independent pickup, rather.
Jessica Taylor, always a pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Political panel time. Democratic strategist and former DNC spokesperson Mo Elleithee and Republican strategist Alex Conant, who we remember met each other when he was comms director. That's communications director for Marco Rubio's 2016 presidential campaign. Mo, you first, then Alex. Anything that you saw in the Cook political report, which isn't gospel, but it's pretty aggressive and it's pretty thorough, that you disagree with?
I mean, the one thing that she said, she said a lot of things that that I agree with, but we have to start with there's still a long way to go. Right. These races are very fluid, and this is a very tumultuous and chaotic time in our politics. Having said that, I'd much rather be at DNC headquarters than RNC headquarters right now when you look at the map. States like North Carolina, which have been trending purple for quite some time now, for more than a decade, we knew was going to be competitive. Cooper is a very strong candidate.
Important to note about Roy Cooper, he won races for governor when Trump was on the ballot.
That's right.
Twice. That seems to matter.
That's right. Voters there know him. They like him.
And know what a split ticket looks like.
That's right.
Because they filled it out.
That's exactly right.
Alex?
Look, I think a year ago, everyone thought the Republicans were going to keep the Senate because the map is so favorable. I mean, all those states you just talked about, those are all states that Trump won fairly handedly less than 2 years ago. As you pointed out, this is as bad as it gets for Republicans. Gas prices are up. The war in Iran is unpopular. With Trump's own base, it's unpopular. Assuming that he can end the war quickly, gas prices come back down, Republicans are going to be in much better shape. And I think we'll return to the conventional wisdom a couple months ago, which is that the Republicans are likely to keep the Senate. But right now, yeah, it's going to be tight.
I'd caution everyone, though. I mean, you just said, this is about as bad as it can get for Republicans. It's the Trump era. We have no idea how much worse it could get yet. And, right now, it just seems to be snowballing.
But, Alex, there is something that every Republican who is close to this conversation will tell you. They will acknowledge everything you acknowledge, and they say, yeah. But between the President's super PAC and what the various Senate-aligned organizations have, it's about $600 million. Yeah. That is a ton of money. Money can't solve all problems in politics, but it can help you fight through some very tough times.
Yeah, I don't think a lack of resources is going to be what holds back either party, but especially the Republican Party. And I think what the White House will tell you is races where they have focused, the special elections where they've actually focused on turning out their base, they've succeeded. Trump knows how to turn out Trump voters. And that's going to be the key to winning in these red states. If he can turn out the voters that turned out for him 2 years ago, we're going to be okay. But they have to really focus on it. And right now, I think they're focused on the war and larger issues.
And, Mo, that's an enormous amount of money that I just described, and it's real.
No, it really is. But, the one thing about these special elections and other past history that we know to be true, Trump's popularity is not necessarily transferable to down-ballot candidates. When he's not on the ballot, they don't benefit from the same energy from the base. His unpopularity is very much transferable.
And that is what the midterms are going to come down to,
That's right.
the enthusiasm gap. We know that Democrats are going to turn out. Can Trump turn out his own base? He didn't do it in 2018. He's got to do it in 2026, or he's
and we are forced to consider this question, which I wasn't thinking we would be considering just last week. How does the White House relationship with Pope Leo, the first American pope, factor into all this? Because this is what the vice president said at a Turning Point USA event in Georgia last night.
I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology. And I think that one of these issues here is that there has been, again, hey, random dude screaming, I told you I'd respond to your point. I just want to respond to this question first. But I think one of the issues here is that if you're going to opine on matters of theology, you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure it's anchored in the truth. And that's one of the things that I try to do. And it's certainly something I would expect from the clergy, whether they're Catholic or Protestant.
Courtesy of the New York Times, a bulletin that just released a couple of minutes ago, the chairman of the U.S. Catholic Bishops' Doctrine Committee this afternoon defended Pope Leo's authority on theological matters, saying that the pontiff preaches the gospel. Okay, when the vice president says the Pope has to be careful when speaking about theology, Alex, how do you how do you parse that?
I go back to what Trump said, which is he took issue with political statements that the Pope is making, and that is not unprecedented. I used to work for Marco Rubio, a very, very devout, lifelong Catholic, who routinely took issues with what the Pope was saying on political issues, especially during, say, the immigration fight. So I don't think there's anything inappropriate with that. I think where Trump gets in trouble is when he tweets out the images, of himself as a Christ-like figure, when he seems to be doing things that make light of God, or however you want to put it. Clearly, that's not going to go over well with his own base. I don't think his own base is troubled with him having a political disagreement with the Pope.
Mo, I get the sense that most Democrats are just letting this one play out.
I mean, it sort of is the Pope's gig, right, to talk about theology. That's sort of the whole point. And look, he's the spiritual leader for 1 billion Catholics worldwide.
1.3 billion.
Many here in the United States. Donald Trump did well with Catholics in the last
14.
election.
Yep.
But they don't like this. They don't have a problem, I don't believe, with the president disagreeing with the Pope on a matter of policy.
Exactly.
But when he personally attacks the Pope, as he has over the past few days, that makes a lot uncomfortable. The vice president made those remarks at Turning Point USA, a group for young people. The fastest growing group of Catholics in the country are young people. This is not good politics for them at all.
Alex Conant, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming out here. Thanks for finding us here on the second floor. Never easy.